Hey YouTube, it's part of the 2U here. On my last video, I got a whole bunch of questions asking about how this whole controversy over video games began. In short, I'm going to try to explain it right here. Yep, it began with good old Grand Theft Auto San Andreas. To be fair, there were some games before that attracted controversy, and there have been plenty of games after, but Grand Theft Auto San Andreas was the first game to really get attention in the US, and the first game to actually have people who wanted it to be banned. Now I know that this is a Fox News commentary, but for a second I'm gonna have to venture away from Fox and go attack NBC. I'm doing this to show everyone how the controversy over Grand Theft Auto San Andreas began. On NBC, you will see Tony Romando defend Grand Theft Auto San Andreas and Rockstar. He does a pretty good job of it, and you will see the infamous Jack Thompson try to attack Grand Theft Auto San Andreas. Jack Thompson is well known for being an anti-video game attorney who was later disbarred.
Tony Romando is editor-in-chief of the gadget magazine Sync, and Jack Thompson is an attorney and video game expert.
Wait, what? Since when has Jack Thompson ever been a video game expert?
Guys, good morning to both of you.
Morning.
Tony, let me start with you. Is this game, first of all, going to live up to its hype? Is this going to be the biggest selling game ever?
Absolutely. It'll do, as you said, bigger than any Hollywood production ever. I mean, this game is massive, and people have been waiting for it for years. So.
And
of course, we now know that Grand Theft Auto San Andreas was not the highest selling game of all time. Unfortunately, Wii Fit's the highest selling game of all time. But Grand Theft Auto San Andreas did sell very well. And ironically, that was mostly due to people like Jack Thompson talking about trying to ban the game.
The guy who works 12 hours a day on Wall Street and is stressed out and gets home, this is his vice. This is his way to relieve a little stress.
you see it as an outlet?
Absolutely. I mean, it's entertainment. It's like
if it's an outlet, why do we need beating up people, shooting people, getting points for killing cops?
That's a fairly out-of-touch argument against the game. Obviously, there's a market for this type of stuff because people enjoy it. People enjoy feeling like they're an unstoppable force.
On the guys, the Rockstar, the company that makes it, in their defense, the whole game is not just about, you can't just beat up cops and, beat up women. When you turn on the people that are, in theory, to protect you, the whole game turns in on you.
So you're saying there's violence, but there's consequences for that violence.
Absolutely.
Now, under normal circumstances, that would have been a pretty good argument to make. But unfortunately, as we saw in part 1 of my commentary, at least the people at Fox News still think that video games are only about scoring points. They have no idea that there's actually a story that you follow. They're completely out of touch with what video games are like now. And of course, once you actually have a story, you can have more significant consequences. As anyone who's ever played a Grand Theft Auto game will tell you, if you go insane and start shooting cops, the cops are going to come and get you. They're going to kill you. You can't just go and wipe out half the city without anyone noticing.
When it boils down to it, it depends, it all boils down to parents. I mean, this is a parent issue. This is an adult issue. It's not about the kids.
Now, of course, he's right. That's exactly the course of action that people should take. You don't need to ban the game. Just if you don't want your kids playing the game, that's understandable. Just don't let them play the game. Don't buy it for them. Figure out what your kids are playing. It's not really all that hard.
My son was able to go into Best Buy here in South Miami last night and buy it at the age of 12. He was able to buy Vice City, the other incarnation, at the age of 10, no questions asked.
This is probably the only time I'll ever defend Jack Thompson, but he's actually right. There is a problem if someone can just walk into the store at the age of 10 and buy Grand Theft Auto Vice City. However, that's not a problem with the game, that's a problem with Best Buy. So you shouldn't ban the game because of that. What you should do is you should make sure that Best Buy employees don't sell the game to kids. It's much more simple than actually banning the game.
At Best Buy, the problem, and what Tony doesn't apparently know, is that Harvard and Indiana universities have determined that these games are actually processed in an adolescent and in a teen in the part of the brain in which copycatting is likely to occur, whereas adults process them in the forebrain where differentiation between reality and fantasy occurs.
First of all, just like I said in part 1, the research is completely contradictory as to whether video games cause copycat behavior or not. Harvard might show that it does, but then next thing you know, a study from Yale comes out and the study from Yale shows that video games have nothing to do with copycat behavior or violence. But besides that, I think Jack Thompson's giving the graphics from Grand Theft Auto San Andreas a little too much credit. I'm pretty sure I can differentiate between Grand Theft Auto San Andreas and real life. It doesn't look that realistic.
In Oakland, California, Matt, Daryl Stallworth, the prosecutor, has asked me to help him prove to a jury in a murder trial that older men were using Grand Theft Auto 3 as a murder and carjacking simulator to train teens on how to do carjackings, and one of the kids said, "We played the game by day and we lived the game by night."
Again, here Jack Thompson's giving video games like Grand Theft Auto way too much credit. As somebody who has played Grand Theft Auto 4, someone who's played Grand Theft Auto San Andreas, I can tell you that to jack a car you just push one button. Okay, that is not a realistic simulator. The same thing is true for using it as a, quote, murder simulator, unquote. In Grand Theft Auto 4, you can be hit by a grenade, and you can be shot 10 times, and you can get up and run away. Okay, if someone was using that as a murder simulator, it would not work.
The reality is, what came first, the gangs or the game?
This is probably the single best argument in defense of Grand Theft Auto San Andreas. Obviously, everything that was portrayed in the game was happening long before Grand Theft Auto had ever existed.
He can go with all the legal battles he wants to. He's been involved in every legal battle ever with video games, every, music, Howard Stern, everything. He's never won a single dollar. He's never actually won a single case.
Wow. I mean, that's one of the most epic interview moments ever. Tony Romando just completely owned Jack Thompson. I wish more interviews would go like that.
I mean, this isn't the bloodiest game ever. This isn't the most violent game ever.
Again, here Tony Romando brings up a very valid point. Obviously, Jack Thompson and people like him are going after Grand Theft Auto because it's just really high profile and they want to get a lot of attention for themselves. Because any gamer, any hardcore gamer can tell you that there are way more violent games out there than Grand Theft Auto. Grand Theft Auto does not have all that much blood in it, and games like Manhunt are incredibly violent. Even back in games like Metal Gear Solid 1 for the PlayStation 1, there were scenes that were way more bloody than anything you will find in any Grand Theft Auto game. Like in Metal Gear Solid 1, which I did a commentary on a couple months ago, there's one scene where Cyborg Ninja is cutting people in half. Okay, that scene is way more bloody than anything in a Grand Theft Auto game, and yet of course it's not as high profile as Grand Theft Auto, so Jack Thompson ignores it.
Jack, go ahead.
How about some equal time here? First of all, the heads of 6 major healthcare organizations, including the American Medical Association, have all testified under oath before Congress that there is a direct causal link between these games and teen violence.
First of all, it's ironic that Jack Thompson is complaining about supposedly getting less time when he's the one who keeps interrupting Tony Romando. But besides that, there are way more than 6 major healthcare groups in the United States. I would like to know what all of the others think. Just because 6 major healthcare groups think something does not mean that's what the majority thinks, or even that it's any kind of consensus.
Secondly, law enforcement has found repeatedly, as in Grand Rapids, Michigan, that some young people played Grand Theft Auto 3, hopped in their truck, ran over a man they didn't even know.
But, Jack Thompson, I bet you can't prove that it was the game that caused them to do that. Just because they played the game and they murdered someone doesn't mean that X caused Y. It doesn't mean that the game caused the murder. I bet these kids also went to school. Does that mean that the school caused the murder? Of course not. That logic does not work.
I went out to Washington State. I was the chief witness before the Senate. The Democratic governor signed into law a bill prohibiting the sale of these games, including Grand Theft Auto Vice City, to anyone under 17. What did the video game industry do, supported by people like your other guest here? They came in and persuaded a liberal Clinton appointee judge that video games are constitutionally protected to be bought by children, which is absolute nonsense.
Of course, now there are rules and regulations that say that you actually do have to produce some form of identification, like a driver's license, if you want to buy an M-rated game. So now this is basically a non-issue, but I did want to point out that of course Jack Thompson immediately brought politics into it by talking about a liberal Clinton appointee judge. Obviously he's trying to get the support of conservatives. Luckily, neither political party has taken up an anti-video game stance.
I'm going to give Tony the last word.
It's the same old song and dance, you know, rock and roll and everything that you want to pick from throughout the years. It's the parents' job. I mean, there's no doubt about it. This game is rough and it's tough, and it's not meant for 13-year-old kids.
Tell that to the families
Jack,
of the
hold
dead
on.
people.
It's a hard excuse to get around, but you know, it's the parents' job. I mean, you know what your kids watch, you know their movies, you know their games, you know their magazines, you know the music they listen to. If you don't know the video games they play, you're not doing your job.
A pretty solid closing argument. I only wish that he had kept on going with one of the original points that he was going to make about rock and roll. Of course, at one point, parents thought that rock and roll incited violence or any number of bad things, and the same thing's true about comic books at one time. I just wish he had continued with that point. Anyway, I know that this is supposed to be a Fox News commentary, but the reason that I went into NBC here is because I wanted to show everyone how this all began. Now we will be getting back to Fox News. Fun for everyone.
Manhunt 2, coming to a screen near you. It is a new video game full of brutal killings. It's so vicious that the UK just banned it. Well, should we outlaw it too, or let the free markets decide if it lives or dies? Anti-violence activist Jack Thompson joins Jonathan for the debate. Jack, you say no reason for this game, just to stop selling it.
Just be forewarned that this is a very one-sided debate in Jack Thompson's favor. First of all, he's debating someone, and remember, I don't know who he's debating. I don't know the guy's name, I don't know what he's done, but he's not very good at debating against Jack Thompson. Besides that, at one point, the Fox News interviewer, or host, who's supposed to be somewhat of a moderator in the debate, actually completely joins Jack Thompson's side. So just be aware of that as we wade into this interview.
Well, I think this is maybe the one game that ought to be banned.
Of course, in the past, Jack Thompson tried to have all sorts of games banned from being sold to minors.
We've got 3 layers of fraud going on here with the video game industry and the Entertainment Software Rating Board that rates the games in this country. And magically, this game went from an adults only to a mature rating, and there wasn't enough time to really redo the game, but they, in effect, got the mature rating, which means it'll be sold, frankly, to kids of all ages.
Jack Thompson is right when he says that the game was rated down from an adults-only rating to a mature rating. But of course, they didn't have to remake the entire game. They only took out some of the more violent situations in the game. Also, pretty much every major retail chain, including GameStop, that sells video games, now requires you to show your ID if you're going to buy an M-rated game. And adult-rated games aren't even on display. You have to ask to be able to see them.
The ESRB is owned by the industry.
If the ESRB was owned by the gaming industry, Halo would not have gotten a mature rating.
It doesn't even play all of the game.
Here, Jack Thompson is actually correct. The ESRB does not always play the entire game. However, it is the responsibility of the developers of the game to tell and show the ESRB what the worst, as in most violent or most sexual parts of the game are. And of course, there are punishments for game companies if they do not follow through and actually show the ESRB what the worst parts of the game are. Alright, this commentary has gotten long enough, so I'm going to cut it off here. In part 3, we shall resume with this same interview, because we're only about halfway through this one. And the next part 3 will be almost completely focused on Fox News. And I promise you that.